All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope you're doing well. This is Dr. Thomas Rashard Easley here. What's going on, my people? I'm happy to say I'm back in North Carolina. I've been gone. I've been traveling. Been on the road. I was up in the Midwest, and it was a lot of fun. And we're happy to be back. Happy to be back on this side of the Mississippi, and hope that you all are preparing. Hope you all are having a good day as well. I'm also happy to be back here in North Carolina. I really had a great time in Michigan, though. I learned a lot. I did a lot. And so glad to see you all are here. Let me go and get some of the usual things out of the way. Remember, you can follow me on youtube.com/RASHAADI, facebook.com/Rashard Easley, or Thomas.R.Easley /Facebook, and Instagram Rashard Ease, and Twitter Rashard Ease. Good. I'm glad you got the notification. All right, Dr. Juice. Okay, we'll see if anybody else comes in. Actually saw Miss Sanders this week, and she was like, "Hey, sorry I missed you last week." So so we'll see if anyone else gets on. But how you doing this morning? Haven't had this elixir in almost a week. Okay, all right, great. Okay, good. All right, well, awesome. Okay, I'm glad that you're doing great. I am too. I'm up. I'm here. Excuse me. Shoot, when I came back in yesterday, I came into this house. I cleaned this house, did all my laundry, unpacked, cleaned out everything, fumigated everything, and then after that, exercised some, and then cooked a little bit. And it was like, I need to relax. Didn't I just fly back in town? So I hadn't even like really sat down, really. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's get into what we're doing today. What I really want to do is I want to continue how we started off last week, but kind of weaving in some of my recent travels, like before, like some of the things that I've learned on my recent travels before I travel. So I thought you clean. I do clean before trips. I didn't clean up as much as I did before this trip, though. My house stays relatively clean all the time. It just does. I believe in having a clean house because I can't get my mind and my thoughts straight if my environment is not clean. Sometimes I kind of feel like what your house looks like may reflect, at least, well, let me say this. What my house looks like for me sometimes can reflect what's going on in my head, what's going on in my heart. So for me, a dirty house probably means that I'm kind of confused, in my head or something like that, because it's too much, it's too much that's like out of place. And when things are kind of out of place, then I think that it's hard for you to operate in order. And I think a lot of people who quote the Bible, sometimes they quote like things like, God likes things to be decency and in order. So anyway, I want to just talk a little bit about, so, at Peace Church, we're doing this series here again, that's entitled College Students That Follow Jesus. And the thing is that you can put anything in front of college students. You say black people that follow Jesus. You can say men, women, gay, lesbian, transgender, rich, poor, working class, middle class, politicians, whoever. You can add whatever you want. And the reason that I think that it's important for people to do that is because depending on what walk of life you are in my opinion, I think that'll impact first in some ways how you worship or how you practice your religion. So college students usually come to Jesus or come to church mainly probably from family influence, parental influence, and then over years, one or the other may happen. They either start to question the religion, and then they start to practice it a particular way because they start to get a different understanding, or they allow themselves to explore and travel and go into it, or maybe they don't question, or they question but they didn't get any answers, and so then they start behaving like the people that they learned the religion from. And so just like children are not born to be racist, children are not born being racist. I also think that the way that we understand religion a lot of times is also, in my opinion, I think based on how we were raised. Like, I meant to pull out one of my books, but I think I actually left it in my office, Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. And in that book, one of the things that really comes out in that book, I'm looking at my bookshelf, so please don't think that I'm ignoring you, is that he talks about how you learn how to oppress. Like, oppressed people oppress people. Or like they say, hurt people hurt people. Because I'm not born a racist. I'm not born a sexist. I'm not born xenophobic or homophobic. I become that. I learn how to be that. And so it is funny. It is funny to me how people don't really even understand how religiously the way that they learn and practice their religion is really based on their culture, not based on the religion. Okay, it's right. Exactly. If I were in Iran, I would be a Muslim. And so, because people don't understand it, because it's not taught that way, it's taught as an absolute. Okay, the religion that they understand is taught absolutely. So, like, think about it this way. Like, I grew up in a black church. Matter of fact, I wouldn't even consider my church Southern Baptist that I grew up in as a child. So I wouldn't even consider that. I call, in my opinion, what I grew up a Southern black church. Now, other people may come and call it Southern Baptist. Okay, I call it Southern black. And I say Southern black because the way that I know the church was established and maintained, and especially if it was established and maintained post-slavery, through civil rights, a lot of the ways that the church operated was, church was a good place for people to continue to get reconnected and to get inspiration, and for them to learn what they needed to do to make it throughout the week, to make it throughout life, because black folks were trying to survive, especially in the South, but everywhere, really, in my opinion, in the country, they're trying to survive. And so the church was a great conduit or a great environment for us to reconnect with each other, get motivation, get energy for us to go back out into the world. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that black folk were learning in church how to be in a relationship with one another. They were probably learning in church how not to get beat upside the head, or learning how in church to be proud of who you were, and do it under the guise of this religion. But the reason that I believe that that is the way, that that's what they were taught then, is because when I was coming up in my church, we didn't talk about health, you see. So we didn't talk about people in church having diabetes and how, especially if you weren't born with it. So that means that a lot of our people are dying from a curable disease. We didn't address divorce in our church and relationship from a perspective of what you like, how you behave, and what you do. You learned it more so from the perspective of man is this and woman is that. And so most folks really don't fully sometimes get that on a certain level, you were brainwashed. That on a certain level, you assimilated. That on a certain level, you were acculturated. On a certain level, you set who you were aside to become like somebody else. So then when you start to come into your own and you start questioning things and thinking about things, it's kind of like you're being liberated, but you're being liberated from oppression. You see, you're being liberated from something that you might feel that was kind of imprisoning you, which makes sense why so many people run from religion. I mean, run like fast and run far from it, especially when they come to a new understanding. They're like, oh my God, like this was all a trap. This was a trick. And so they run. And then not only do they run, sometimes they run and they're mad. Like they're mad when they're running, and they're mad because they're like, I was tricked all this time and nobody told me. And so then they start questioning themselves, and if I'm really real, if I understand things. And then the other thing, here's what's so funny. Even people who run from religion are still sometimes treating themselves under the religious guise because it's all that they know. See, so even the people who say that I'm not a Christian probably don't even realize you're judging yourself based on the Christian upbringing that you had. Like, no, I don't practice religion. I'm like, So then how do you decide what you do and what you don't do? It's probably based on how you were raised. It was probably based on how you grew. So here again, see, so here again at Peace Church, what we work to do is to help the students not assimilate to religion, but to understand that there's a place in your life where this practice, because that's really what it is practice. Because that's all that you're doing for the rest of your life. You're practicing it. Because you can't say that you fully are living it as though you know it all, because you don't know it all. You can't really say I'm fully living my religion because you don't even understand the origins of it. You understand what you were taught were the origins of it. You don't know it yourself. So on a certain level, you're practicing or you're trying to understand something that you don't know. And in some ways you'll never know. And then you're trying to align it with this lived experience. And so that's why in Peace, we focused for the last 2 years since I've been there, we focused on studying the Bible, understanding the religion and its origins, understanding Judaism, in some ways understanding Islam, along with Christianity, because they're all related. Like they're all interrelated, to be honest with you. And so it's to give us an opportunity to explore it from a place of open-mindedness, and not from a place of this oppression where I'm right and you're wrong. This year, what we're doing is we're studying the Bible, but we're looking at it more so from the perspective of the things that impact your life the most, especially as a college student. So they're learning it from the perspective of money, because money will impact your life. Thank you for that, Doc. They're learning it from friendships, because friendships completely impact your life, especially when you leave your mother and father's house or whoever's house and go to college or get a job and move out. Friendships definitely impact. Learning it from the perspective of relationships, because friendships lead to relationships. Learning it from the perspective of time, because how you spend your time and how you use your time also impacts where you go in your life. Learning it from the perspective of like how I use my energy, how I use, how I use my health, how I use my mind. And keep in mind, all of these technically are finite. When we think about it, they're finite resources. Time is finite because once Saturday is over, I can't get yesterday back. If this friendship is over, I'm probably going to be saddened or impacted by that person not being in my life. If this relationship is over, I'm definitely going to be impacted from the time and the influence that this person had over my life. Money is another major one. Money is really probably one of the most major ones, because depending on the community that you came from, probably impacts the relationship you have with money. Like if you came from a rich background, you probably have a nice, maybe, and this is total assumption, a nice or a cool relationship with money because you've always had it. So you might behave somewhat like a privileged kid that has no limits, or somebody who's like totally like business, like we're going to make sure that we keep this money. But if you grew up poor and very impoverished, money is not something that you're probably really free with. Money is something that you might either be frivolous with, you may be fearful of, or you may be overprotective of it because you're trying to hold on to it because you haven't had it. So that means that what's controlling you? Are you controlling the money, or is the money controlling you? So here, this is why we're talking about your foundation and helping you create a foundation that aligns with the person that you are and aligns with the way that you understand the faith that you're practicing, so that you won't be living a life where you're floundering like a fish that's not in water. We're trying to help you live a life where you are really like a fish that's in water, but you're a fish that's in troubled water all the time. Because if you're a fish in a certain part of the ocean, guess what? Somebody's trying to come after you. Like, I want you to think about this. If we were teaching fish religion, who would the devil be? The devil would probably be humans. because we're coming to seek, kill, and destroy your community because you're food for me. It's a joke, but I want you to think about that. Here again, remember, it depends on your perspective and it depends on where you are and what you're doing in your life. My father is a great fisherman, but I don't think my father thinks that he's killing wildlife when he's out there fishing. I think he thinks that it's a sport and he's having a good time. But I'm like, I don't think that animals technically have human agency because they don't. But I'm like, this is wildlife. This is something that God gave us. So this is why we want the students to understand religion so that they don't get so focused or so stuck. I should say stuck, because I want you to focus. You need to focus so they don't get stuck in the semantics of religion and they start understanding the spirit behind it. Okay, understanding the spirit behind it. So to me, Jesus Christ was like, if Jesus Christ was a politician, it would have been amazing. Because what he said, at least from what I understand, it's a very political message that he had. If Jesus Christ was only an educator, he would have been an outstanding teacher because what he taught was, I think, outstanding. He was a rabbi, so that made him a preacher, which really made him a teacher, which when you really think about it, it did make him a politician because he was a public figure. And I think that the way that he lived his life and the way that he treated people, to me, is the best example, at least for me. It is the best example of how we are to live on this earth and the way that we're to treat one another. And I do believe that the way he did it is outside of religion. I believe that you can maybe say it starts with religion, but it steps outside of it. Because if you look at Old Testament to New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, to after Jesus resurrects, teaches for 40 days, and then ascends to heaven, and then Acts comes in, and then we start learning from Saul, who becomes Paul, and learning about the day of Pentecost and the Spirit, came and dwelt among the people. If you think about it, Jesus really also operated like a philosopher because he brought a new philosophy. His philosophy, the genesis of it, it's funny, Genesis, no pun intended, but the genesis of his philosophy did, to me, start in Genesis. It starts with the Torah, but it evolves and it starts to involve other things. Like when he said, love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, that was Old Testament. Okay. But this is new. This is his addition. But, love your neighbor as yourself. That was not in the Old Testament. See? And so for most Christians, they're not taught the Bible that way. In my opinion, they're not taught to see the difference between what Jesus did compared to what was going on in the rest of the Bible. But college students in particular, this is what I love about being at a university, is the curiosity of college students. The inquisitiveness that they have is so, in my opinion, is so innocent. It's so pure. And so a lot of people, even like I have two friends who ministers who come and work with me from one of the major area churches, and they say it all the time. They go, man, like these kids are so hungry. They're so hungry. But I want to even push a little bit, even on my friends, who say that. Well, what are they hungry for? They're not hungry to learn religion. They're hungry to understand, how does this apply to my life? You see, and a lot of times we want to teach religion. And I'm like, no, they want to understand how this applies. Because when they're not in front of us and they're with their boyfriend or girlfriend, they want to understand, how am I supposed to behave when I know I want to have sex, but then I've been told all my life that I'm not supposed to. But I think I'm about to do this thing, though. They want to know, how am I supposed to behave when a parent passes away? How am I supposed to feel when a family member dies? How am I supposed to be when I'm low on money and I have no money? But then in some of their cases, what happens when I start to make a lot of money? What happens when my relationship falls apart? They want to know. And to me, to talk about people based on sexual orientation, y'all are missing the mark. To talk about how a man is supposed to treat a woman in a relationship instead of talking about how we're supposed to treat one another just humanly, you're missing the mark. And so, how do I know that you're missing the mark? Watch this. Ask any friend that you have that's married and ask them, how have they learned, especially if they've been married for longer than 10, 15 to 20 years. I want you to ask them, how have they learned how to survive and stay in their relationship? And I put money on it. The Bible is not the only resource, if they're Christian, if they're a Christian family, that they've used to understand how to live in that relationship. As a matter of fact, I put money on it. Part of the way that they learn how to be in that relationship probably came from them watching their mother and their father, if their mother and their father are still married. Or if they're not married, they learn what not to do. So even people who don't even acknowledge it, don't even realize a lot of times that they do use other resources to educate them on how to be and how to live. So we want these students to use other resources on how to live and understand that your faith, like for me, my faith is central to what I do and how I do what I do. My faith really shows me how to treat people. My faith shows me how to see people. My faith has shown me how to see myself. And you may want to know, well, then how do you see people? Like, maybe you want to know that. How do you see yourself? Well, first, it starts with me. It doesn't start with the people. It starts with me. How do I see myself? On a day like today, because I'm in a great mood. I'm feeling good. Money's in the bank. My relationships are great. Making music again. So, I'm happy because I'm an artist. I think now I'm an artist before I'm anything. Because I kind of don't like to live my life with certain limitations now. I like to live my life with boundaries, but I don't like to live my life with certain limitations. Like, I hope I'm using more than 10% of my brain. Matter of fact, I think I am because of the way that I see the world. So I see myself as a being that's perfect the way that I was made, but not perfect in the way that I am. Meaning, the way I was formed is how I'm supposed to be. However, the way that I operate, I'm learning every day how to engage with people. So I'm not a perfect being because I'm limited based on my lived experience. So I'm learning every day how to be with you, how to be with myself. And because that's how I see myself, that's how I see other people. I look at them and I go, well, they're learning too. They're trying to figure this out, just like I am. That they're trying to understand the world the same way that I do. And the only way for them to understand it right now is based on how they were raised. So then, what's a cure for ignorance? Travel, go see something else, make a new friend, read a book, go to another part of the country, go to another part of the state, and then you start to learn something different. And I think that because Jesus, as a child, traveled throughout, not just like Nazareth and Israel, and I'm sure he touched parts of Jerusalem before he became an adult. He saw so much, he learned so much, and of course he's still learning under the guise of his religion, being a Jewish person, being Hebrew. He learned that, and then he learned who he was, and then he started to apply it in a way that, if you think about it, compared to the Pharisees, he was eons ahead of them. Because I think Jesus allowed himself to explore who he was and who he is. And because he did that, he saw the world differently. He saw himself differently. And so he behaved differently. So I'm going to apply this in a different way to something that happened to me this week. I made a new friend, Jerry. Matter of fact, I am going to post this on Facebook because I hope Jerry sees this. And Jerry is Ojibwe. That's a tribe. It's mostly up in Michigan. I'm going to show you this paper. And that's one of the spellings of the word right there. Ojibwe. Some spell it Ojibwa. And this map here on the back is a representation of how much land that this tribe in particular had. Or have, excuse me. And of course, as you see, like the different colors represents different parts of the tribe and even different parts of Michigan. And now let's bring it back to how I met Jerry. I met Jerry because I went up to work with a school that has a forestry program because I am a forester. Now, you know how I was taught forestry? I was taught forestry from the guise of how to make money. So this tree has certain value and we want to cut down this tree so that we can make products and so that we can make money. Then we want to reforest this area so we can come back because this is a renewable resource. Now, that's the way I was taught. So I was taught it from the perspective of capitalism. I was taught forestry from the perspective of management and silviculture, cultivating the forest to make products. Then I meet my native brother here. And what he taught me, I kind of knew already. And I'm going to tell you how I knew it. But I didn't have this eloquent language and this eloquent education the way that he taught me. He said, see, so part of the problem is here we were in this area before white men came in. Gifford Pinchot, as we understand, because a lot of what we understand about forestry now is German, still not native, or I guess we could even say U.S. or North American. It's like we've taken something that we gotten from Germany, not even talked to the people who lived on this land well before folks came, or even the people who were forced to come here, which would be my people. And I'm proud to say that I'm both because they came together, and that's part of the reason why I'm here, native and black, and that's how I got here. He was like, I just, for my people, it's wrong to be killing our original teachers, and I didn't understand what Jerry meant. I was like, original teachers? And he said, yeah, he said, we're slaughtering our teachers, those who teach us how to live and those who teach us how to be and how to respect the land and how to care for the land. And so I'm loving the language because it sounds so poetic, right? And it sounds so symbolic. And I'm like, well, Jerry, who were the original teachers? What do you mean, like the people? He said, no, Thomas, the trees. And I was like, oh. Like it clicked, like, oh my goodness, it clicked. You're like, you're right. The trees are our original teachers. Like, the trees do teach us how to live with the land. Like, the trees teach us that they need water to survive because that's what the root system is sucking up. And if you stand upright in the sun, you'll grow tall. And if you stand strong, you can grow with other trees. And these trees can be a community. It's so, I'm telling you, so fast it clicked in my head when he said it. It's like, whoa. And then I started thinking about in Africa. I remember the first time I went to Ghana, and I asked one of my teachers, one of my guys there, I said, how did y'all learn what food to eat? Because before I went to Ghana, they said, okay, they gave me all of these immunizations and you don't eat anything off the street. Okay, so I didn't. But when we took this walk in the woods up a mountain, and I apologize, I can't remember the mountain. One of the guys found what you may think is a pineapple, and they called it vine apple. I still remember it's just called a vine apple. And we sat down when we finished the tour, and we ate this vine apple. Now, I remember it said, don't eat anything off the street, but I sat there and I ate this vine apple. And I'm proud to say that as I ate it, it was the sweetest thing on earth that I had ever eaten. And for the next 2 days, my body smelled like that. Like even everything that came from me, and I don't need to be TMI, but yeah, seriously, everything smelled like that. Like this thing was so good. My students even smelled it because, we were sweating. We on the equator. The temperature's hell. So anyway, we burning up. So I'm sweating all the time. And they could smell this coming out of my pores. They're like, man, who smells sweet? And it was like, it's me. And I asked the guy, because he stayed with us for the next, that week. I said, how did y'all learn what to eat, what to do? He said, we watched the animals. The animals taught us what to eat and what to do. That's how our people learned. We watched nature. We watched the wildlife. And if they could eat it and not die, then obviously we may be able to eat it and not die. Now going back to what Jerry said, the trees are our original teachers. And I go, wow, the trees are our original teachers. Then I think about in the Bible when Jesus was talking about, look at the birds in the sky and the fowls of the air, and you see how God is taking care of them. Why are you worried about the food that you're going to eat and the clothes that's on your back? See, if you grow up maybe homeless and poor and impoverished, that may seem crazy. What do you mean, man? I'm hungry. How you going to say that to me? I'm poor. I need money. But when you think about it from that perspective of nature, it makes perfect sense. It's like, oh my goodness, yeah. If these birds can find food to eat, and this bear can find food to eat, and this fish can live in this water and not be afraid, then what are you afraid of walking upright? Or if you're not walking upright, if you're in a wheelchair, or if you're not in a wheelchair, you're walking but you're blind, or you're not blind, you're a man, or you're not a man, you're a woman, or you're not a woman, you're a child. It's like, what are you worried about? If you pay attention to what's going on around you, you'll see if God is taking care of that. And if you respect that and you respect God, then you'll know how to take care of yourself. And hence why we have this series now, learning about how to follow Jesus. Because if this one individual can live that way peacefully with no money and no food, then I know that we can. If he could live a life where, at least from what we see in the Bible, where he was single. I know a lot of people don't want to be single. I I don't think everybody is meant to be married. I don't think everybody is meant to quote unquote be single though. Like, because I do believe when the Bible says it's not good for man, and I say woman, to be alone, but I don't think that's about relationships as far as being married or being booed up. But I do think that that's about being in a relationship with one another, being friends, taking care of each other. And if you do end up in a relationship, what better one to be in a relationship with than someone that's your friend, someone who knows you and you know them if it goes there. But to be there for each other. My dad had been having, some health challenges recently, man, to be here with me when I broke down a little bit, like, it was good for me not to be alone that night, you see, and that's my boy. And he held me, you see, and I don't think there's anything wrong. Someone saw me and said, oh, you see, y'all must look gay. Okay, what's wrong with that? But there's nothing wrong with a man holding another man. Like, that's my brother. Like, he was there for me. He picked me up off the floor. You know what I'm saying? And held me until I could, stand on my own 2 feet again. That's love. That's brotherhood. That's family. You see? To me, that's what Jesus was teaching us. To me, that's what my faith teaches me how to be. And if I'm loving on you, then I don't want to hurt you. If I feel good about myself, I don't want to damage you. I don't want to take from you. If I feel good about what I have, why would I want to come over and take what you have? I'm good with mine. And if I'm content with what I have, why do I want to fight you to make more? To have more than what I need. And so that's why we want to. That's right. Best friends are a gift. And we're actually covering friendships at Peace Church. So hopefully you can look at our YouTube channel, because that is what we're talking about exactly this week. And we were talking about that last week. So I'm over my 30-minute mark. And so I want to ask you, Doc, since you were here with me, and anyone else who's here, like, did you learn anything today? Did you get something from this? I dare ask, did you have church today? And I'm just waiting to see if I get a response. That's all. Oh, I always do. Okay, great. Okay, great. Okay, good. Okay. And I believe in checking in and asking that, because honestly, I think that if you're not asking that, how do you know that you're being effective? If you're not asking that, how do you know that you're connecting with people? If you're not checking in with them to see what did you take away, how do you know that you were effective? And how do you know if what you're doing is actually working or helping somebody? So I hope that you got something from this. I do believe I love the Bible. I believe in reading the Bible. I love the Lord. I love Jesus. But I know that I'm an artist. I know that I am human. I know that I'm a man. I'm a heterosexual man. I'm a black man. And I know all of that impacts how I understand my faith, how I practice my faith. And what I really want is for my faith to impact how I understand all of that as well. I want it to be an interchangeable relationship. Faith teaches the blackness. Blackness is addressing the faith, because that is my reality. Not, no, it shouldn't be that way. Well, that is how it is. That's the life that I'm living. I'm born in the U.S. and I was born in the South. So race is salient to me. And so it really does impact how I do what I do. I think it impacts all of us as well. So let's work on our foundation, and let's not approach religion in an oppressive way. But that doesn't mean that religion hasn't been oppressive, okay, and that it can't be. I'm just saying we don't have to approach it in an oppressive way. Let's look at it from the perspective of, man, how does it help me to see me? Okay, so Doc, like you or anybody else, when I see you, I see a beautiful person. I see I see a scholar. I see a fine woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, like, okay, that. What are y'all missing out here? Somebody's blind out here. Somebody's missing something. So what are you not hearing? You're not hearing something. But that's what I see. So then when I engage, I'm thinking about, how do I engage with this individual and hopefully make their life better? Or at least, how do I, when this individual and I part, hopefully they're better when we part instead of feeling worse. Hopefully when they leave my side, they're still on my side, or they're now on my side, and not from the perspective of trying to boost my ego, but because our hearts connected. You know, the God in me spoke to the God in them. You see, and anyone who's questioning their religion, I want to just, hey, encourage you to approach it that way. Like, look at it that way. Don't look at it from this perspective of praying to God for my life to be better. You know, I mean, well, pray for your life to be better because of your life. You want things in your life to change, you know, like that's great. But look at it more so from the perspective of how am I supposed to see myself in this world? Okay, how am I supposed to see this? How am I supposed to see this world? See, I'm not discouraged by the stuff going on in the country right now, especially with our current president, you know, in the United States and Congress and stuff like that, because what they're doing has been done before. You know, there are definitely some new nuances there, but what they're doing has been done before. What we're fighting over is the same stuff that we've been fighting over. And look where we are now. It's not perfect, but look where we are now. I mean, in 2017, I care about my health and my physicality. I'm not looking at a brother, you know, who's gay as he's going to hell, because I don't believe that. No. And I don't believe he's an abomination. That's my brother, you know. And I understand that the more I take care of myself and love myself, it's so much easier for me to look at you and care and love you. You know, and so that's how I look at my faith. I don't look at myself like qualify myself based on my money and how much money I do or don't have. I go, how can I use this money to get either where I think that I want to go or to create a memory that I want to have? But this money is not in control of me. This money is a tool. Okay, that's what this is. When I look at my sexuality, I don't look at my sexuality from the perspective of how it was kind of taught to me how to control women, because I did learn it that way. I've learned it in a sexist way, or how to be man and how to be macho, you know, anything like that. But I look at my sexuality as another way of expressing myself and another way of expressing my care and my love for another individual, you know, and thank God that it can be with someone that I'm in a monogamous relationship with, you know. Excuse me, I stutter from time to time. You know, so I look at it from that perspective, not from the perspective of domination and not from the perspective of control, but from the perspective of expression. So, and because here again, like I said, you know, and thank you, Doc. Yeah, you're right. I look at how I impact other people, then I'm looking at how that can impact other people. So, you know, I don't want to take advantage of folks. I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to trip people up. I don't want to lie to people. I don't want to play people. I do want to enjoy, because it's a wonderful thing to be able to have. It's a wonderful experience, but I want to do it. You know, I want to be able to do it and practice even that, because even that's practice. Even in a monogamous marriage relationship, it's still practice because you're still learning each other. I want to be able to do it freely, not freakishly, not in a perverted way, you know, but I want to do it in a lovely way. You know, I want to do it in a loving way. And I want to do it in a love way, you know, where we care about each other. And I think, and for me, that's what my faith is teaching me. Like, my faith is showing me that, because if I see God as my source and I see myself as a vessel, and that's all that I am, and my life is just a blowing the wind, then my importance is really not that important. And I see myself as part of a bigger picture. I'm part of a big puzzle. And I just want to fit my piece in the puzzle. And so when I die, I believe that when I die, because I'm living a life of love and light, I'm going to walk into an eternity of love and light. Okay, because I'm living love and light right here. That means that if I have it here, then I can have it there. So I strive to have it here, and I just focus on having it there, especially when I don't even know what there looks like. I don't know what the next dimension or the next world looks like. And so that's how I practice. So I'm sorry, Doc, I got kind of long-winded, but I really do believe that for me, my help just came, meaning the spirit really woke up inside of me and something else came out. And I'm talking to you from God. I'm not speaking to you just as Thomas. And so thank you for being online. You know, if you want to, if you have any questions, you know, holler at me, email me, call me. And I hope that you have that's right. I would live a good life. And I pray and hope that you have a wonderful one. And everyone else has an amazing one. And we're going to talk to y'all soon. I love you, but God loves you more. Peace.